Morning. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to stand here and finally talk about this project that we did for 2 years. So this research work builds upon two large-scale pieces of research on accommodation on contemporary cargo ships conducted in 2011 and 2016. So both studies highlighted several problems encountered by seafarers while living and working on board. And in particular, we look at the design of a ship's accommodation. So vessel accommodation design, as we all know, can impact on the quality of rest accessible to seafarers, the levels of restoration in non-working hours, and the degree of mental well-being they experience. Yet, the design of vessel accommodation is an area which receives insufficient attention across the industry, and as a result, we can find that there's a high degree of variability between ships in relation to accommodation, facilities, amenities, and the material condition of the accommodation block. So as I have mentioned a while ago in 2011 and 2016, we conducted two kinds of face-to-face conducted surveys. So we had questionnaires, we went to ports in Philippines, UK, and China, and we asked seafarers what do they think about their current or most recent vessel. So fast forward, that was 2011, 2016, and 2018. We visited, just to follow up on the findings of these two surveys, we visited different merchant ships at the port here in UK, and we did face-to-face consultations with accommodation engineers and naval architects at shipyards in Japan, China, and Korea. And we also visited manufacturers and suppliers in Europe, so bulkhead systems, helix, what can we do about cabins, for example. And then we also have expert inputs from specialist advisory in the group. So we have a working group which we can consult with because we're not engineers and we're not naval architects, we're sociology people and we don't know anything about the technicalities. So we have to be sure that whatever we are recommending is backed up by experts in the field. So yes, did that. So the first issue relates to inadequate storage space found in cabins. So shore-based research indicates that when humans feel they are living in overcrowded conditions with insufficient personal space, it has a negative impact on mental well-being. So on board ships, we found that around 1 in 10 seafarers share a cabin for the duration of their contracts, and around 1/5 share bathroom facilities. So yes, not all ships have ensuite cabins. And we found that this distributor, some shipyards, especially in Japan, for example, they only build ships which are not in ensuite. In China, you'll find some shipyards, they build cabins that are in ensuite. So this has implication for seafarers' sense of well-being. A cluttered cabin, as shown in the photo, may leave seafarers feeling cramped and may contribute to poor mental health. So in many cases, cabin furnishings are fitted with little attention given to the optimal use of space. So the photo on the left shows a wall space that is not well utilized. There are still many things that you can do, drawers, cupboards that you can put in there. And the other photo on the right shows very small shelf units. In this picture, you can see a suitcase is wedged above the cupboard because there are no more space. You have your boiler suit with you, you have your shoes, safety shoes and all that, and there are no spaces there are not enough cabinets actually. So in our study, we found that 30% of seafarers had insufficient storage space in their cabins. So there is no dedicated space to store suitcases, and cupboards are frequently too small to accommodate clothes and shoes. When faced with the challenges of insufficient storage space, seafarers occasionally find creative solutions. However, they are constrained in what they can do. So for example, they can come up with a bedside shelf out of cardboard as shown in this photo. Because yes, it's the bedside table is not built into the design of the cabin. So there is considerable scope for greater innovation. The following are therefore recommended. If possible, a minimum of 3 standard-sized wall cabinets or equivalent should be mounted on cabin walls. These should contain at least 2 movable, removable shelves. Because usually you find this in an officer's cabin, not in a ratings cabin. So the recommendation is, at least for all seafarers, double wardrobes, cupboards should be installed in all cabins with a clothes rail in one half of the cupboard and a minimum of 5 removable shelves in the other half of the cupboard, the photo on the right. A separate floor-to-ceiling unit should be provided for the storage of one large and one small suitcase, plus life jackets and survival suits as required. Not all ships have a space for this. Actually, we haven't found, in my experience, having boarded a ship and sailed on a ship, I haven't found a ship where it's possible that all this is in one space. Usually you'll find immersion suit and other LSAs, say underneath a sofa or a little cabinet, but not really including the suitcase. Usually seafarers travel with 2 suitcases in a backpack. So if we can sort of put that in the design of the cabins, then that would be really great. And then bedside tables with a drawer and cupboard with one movable shelf should be provided in each cabin. Bed bases should incorporate a minimum of 2 drawers. So this means increasing the height of the bed, just so you can have additional space where you can store your stuff. A minimum of 3 electric sockets should be placed in convenient locations to provide power to bedside tables and to desks, because it becomes a safety issue once seafarers try to add extra cable and all that, and it's not really safe. And then a minimum of 4 coat hooks should be placed in cabins. A rail should be placed on the back of the bathroom door. And cabins should be of sufficient size to accommodate these furnishings in addition to those already required by the Maritime Labor Convention. So the issue of insufficient control of light and temperature has also been reported by many seafarers as a problem on board. Many seafarers were unable to adjust the temperature within their cabins. About 64% of the total seafarers we surveyed in 2016. Similarly, more than half of the seafarers also had difficulty adjusting electric light levels in their cabins. This means that seafarers rely on the engine room staff to actually regulate the temperature of their accommodation, and this may not be a priority for chief engineers and therefore difficult for them to regulate the temperature across the whole ship. Laboratory research has demonstrated that human sleep is influenced by temperature and light. If individuals are too hot or too cold, or if they're sleeping in conditions which are too bright, then their ability to sleep and the quality of sleep will be affected. However, individuals experience different temperature and light levels as optimals for sleep and for relaxation mode. So to each his own in terms of temperature and light. What is right for someone is not actually right for another. It's therefore important that individuals can adjust their environment so that temperature and light levels are comfortable for them. So apart from personal preference, of course, there's also the local conditions. You will find that a cabin might be sometimes near a heat source, or where the ship is located, there's loads of sunshine, and so it's always hot. So it's really important that seafarers can adjust the light and temperature inside their cabins. So as with natural light, research has indicated the considerable value to mental health of a view of the natural environment from a window. The natural environment that seafarers may be able to see is limited at the best of times to expanses of ocean and limited stretches of coastline. However, even these limited opportunities are further restricted on board, as many seafarers have a view from their cabin window which is partially blocked or restricted by items such as containers, cranes, and funnels. So research has also shown the impact of light on human mental health with seasonal affective disorder recognized by clinicians. And for this reason, access to natural light in cabins is of great importance. In our research, there is evidence that in relation to natural light, 10% of seafarers were unable to receive any natural light at all in their cabins, and conversely, 5% did not have any means of blocking out natural light. So the following are our recommendations. If possible, air conditioning, heating systems are fitted to all cargo ships, which allow seafarers to independently set desired cabin temperatures, because now currently temperature regulation is by manual adjustment of the quantity of warm air or cool air that gets into the cabin. So if we have this kind of system, then seafarers can adjust the temperature in the cabin, whatever is optimal for them to relax. So then all cabins should be provided with adjustable levels of electric light. To achieve this, the cabin should be fitted with at least one wall light, one ceiling light, and one reading light, each of which can be used alone or together. If improving level, because currently it's all about, the guideline is all about improving the level of illumination. So what we are suggesting here, if it's very, very expensive to put marine dimmers, for instance, then maybe it's better to use a sort of, be creative in terms of where to put the location of the light. And then being mindful also of the glares and shadows when you're putting the lights, the location of the lights inside the cabin. So this means that there should be multiple switches, much like a hotel room, for example, if there are no dimmers. And all cabins should have a window providing access to natural light. And all cabins should be fitted with blackout blinds, which should be checked at regular intervals and replaced when they can no longer effectively block daylight, meaning maintenance of the blackout blinds that companies will provide. There's also the issue of inadequate provision for recreation. The importance of leisure activities needs no explanation in contemporary society. However, seafarers who live in an institutionalized, remote workplace rely entirely on the provisions for leisure that are made by their companies on board cargo vessels. Given the seafarers' short, uncertain access to shore leave, and with more than a third of them working on board for a period of 6 months or more, provision for leisure facilities is highlighted. There's also evidence that seafarers experience loneliness on board more than they do ashore. So research on seafarers' mental health has illustrated the importance of recreational and interactional activities to seafarers seeking to preserve their mental well-being on board. On board many vessels, however, cargo carrying spaces have been prioritized over accommodation spaces. As a result, provision of sports and leisure facilities are provided even less frequently. So the following are our recommendations. So an indoor swimming pool should be included in all vessels engaged in international deep sea trades. Obviously, this is more expensive than an outdoor swimming pool, but the great thing about having an indoor swimming pool is that you can use it anytime you want to, wherever you are. And you don't need to account for any other variations in your weather wherever the ship is. And of course, a basketball court or full-size squash court should be included on all vessels engaged in international deep-sea trades. A designed-in or a purpose-built gymnasium with good ventilation and rubber flooring should be included in all vessels engaged in international deep-sea trades. We suggested this because most of the gyms that we've seen when we visited ships, they're not built in. So it's like probably a storeroom, then they converted it into a gym. So you don't find rubber flooring, there's no health and safety. It's very dangerous, and there's no ventilation inside the room as well. So it's nice if you have a purpose-built gymnasium. And then a lounge which can comfortably accommodate all seafarers employed on board should be included on all vessels. The idea is that seafarers should have a social space where they can all fit in and socialize whenever they want to. Usually, from our surveys, usually seafarers would like to congregate via karaoke parties, or if it's a captain's birthday, or what else? Or maybe they are on board and they're inviting chaplain. So it's really nice if you have a lounge where everybody can fit in. And so and you can also do other sorts of things inside there, in terms of other activities that they can do. So all seafarers' lounges should be equipped with satellite TV. Not all ships will have this satellite TV or even a TV. All cabins should have unrestricted access to the internet at speeds which permit face-to-face video calling via Skype, because the problem with internet is very, very slow on board ships. And if you want a very fast internet, then you have to really pay per month, whatever the seafarer can afford. If you're an officer, it's great, but if you're a rating, Since really you have to make do with what's available. So apart from the inadequacy of storage space, insufficient control of light and temperature in cabins, and inadequate provisions for recreation, noise and vibration disturbance in cabins is also a problem. So in our research, we found that nearly 2/3 of seafarers were disturbed by noise as well as vibration in their cabins. Noisy environments affects sleep quality. And this has serious implications for fatigue among seafarers with attendant implications for mental health and well-being. Most recently, fatigue has been identified as an immediate or contributory cost in 1 in 10 accidents at sea. And getting tired has been identified as contributing to seafarers' feeling of depression. Cruise ships have taken steps to minimize noise disturbance in passenger cabins, recognizing the negative impact of noise and vibration on human happiness and well-being. Such steps had also been taken on some FPSOs, floating production storage or rigs, FPSO ships, and noise reduction cabins are commonly installed on oil rigs. That such measures are necessary when protecting the welfare of seafarers working board ship for many months at a time seems indisputable. The recommendations for this major problem are the following. Noise reduction cabin system should be fitted as standard to all cabins. This should incorporate insulated double walls, fully insulated self-supporting ceiling systems, insulated window boxes designed to prevent the transfer of structural noise, floating floors incorporating a noise damping material beneath the steel surface. It should be noted here that noise vibration requirements are for normal operation in the MLC, and they do not specify maximum noise and vibration limits for, say for example, you drop an anchor or cargo operations in port. So these are normal operations, so we are therefore suggesting if we can have noise reduction cabin systems, that will be really helpful and significantly improve the seafarers' welfare on board. And noise reduction cabin systems should have at least the same noise reduction capacity as those which are commonly in use in the construction of cruise vessels. So obviously, and this is a normative argument is being made here. If passengers are accorded more comfort as opposed to crew seafarers who actually spend more time on vessels, then why should we not? So just to recap briefly, we have looked at the specific recommendations to the following design issues: the maximization of storage space, reduction of noise and vibration in cabins, incorporating more controls, light and temperature within cabins, and incorporating more access to natural light on board, and of course providing leisure facilities so seafarers will have more spaces for interacting on board. So the main objective of this project really is to improve the standards of shipboard accommodation that will significantly improve seafarers' welfare. The recommendations presented are intended as supplementary to MLC minimum standards, the Maritime Labor Convention standards. So the next step for us now, as part of the project, is to get this out there and use every means possible to convince ship owners to sort of buy into this to some degree or extent. And we also will take this to shipyards to give them a sort of motivation to think about a sort of a possibility that there's a market out there for this kind of ships. And then it's very tricky, but we intended this to release this as a document to back up ship owners when they're ordering ships, basically. So that ends my presentation.